So I just want to start off the interview with talking about your most recent album, Can't Stop Me Now. What do you have to say about that?
It was honestly, it was like a lifelong uh, writing. Like I had written songs over the decades, and this is a compilation of all the songs that I felt best reflected my music. So every song is so different, Priya, on this album because like one was written 15 years ago when country had a different kind of sound. And then another one was like 10 years ago when, again, the transition of country going from pop to, almost like a kind of a rock flavor in there too. So I'm really proud of how this album actually turned out. It really kind of is my first introduction to my songwriting. So yeah, I was really excited to be able to share it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variety. So even if you're not like a classic country listener, there's something for everyone, which I think is really cool.
Yes, that's so true because I went through so many phases through my life when I was writing. I had my classic rock phase where I absolutely love classic rock, but I sang country. So you're going to hear like classic rock riffs in there, but they're kind of embedded in there. And then I went through a very classic country phase when I was in my early songwriting, which was kind of inspired through my mother listening to classic country. So yeah, it's kind of different when you go from song to song on the album, and it's like so different. It's so
Yeah,
different, everyone.
it's
Yeah.
like different moods. That's how I like interpret it. So like for a different occasion. My next question is, so you've been on tour for this album, Can't Stop Me Now. What has that experience been like so far? I've seen you've been traveling just kind of all over Ontario.
Yes. So we started in February. I have an amazing group of guys that are on the road with me. They are such seasoned pros, the top of their experience and their game. So I am very fortunate to have them on the road and a part of my this project that I'm on. But I don't the ability to actually play these songs live is such an experience. Our very first show in February was like it was incredible. It was such a feeling to be able to get, the reaction from the crowd when I was doing my originals, because we do a really good mix. We do a little, some high energy country, and we actually do a little bit of classic rock in there too. So when I do my originals in there and to see people's reaction, it is really such a cool feeling, especially when they're singing back my song to me. As the months went by and we were on tour, people in like the front row were like singing my songs. And I was thinking, how cool is that they have listened to my music enough that they actually know the words.
So being on tour since February, I'm wondering if you have any like tour rituals that you kind of do now.
Um, well, we our first show we cracked the champagne open afterwards, right? Because it was like our first show. But yeah, I think really we just do a almost like a team, like a football team when they count, they go, yeah, let's go. That's kind of what we do before we go on stage because we are so pumped up and so excited to play. So I think we do that probably before we go on every time.
My next question is if you have a favorite place that you've been touring. Like, is there a place that stood out to you that you enjoyed the most, or has everything just kind of been great?
Every city that we've gone to has been different. Like it's the music scene in each individual city is very unique. So we are heading to Oshawa next weekend to the Biltmore Theater, and then we're on to Kingston. And then we come all the way back and we play in Windsor at the Chrysler Theater. So we're kind of traveling right across Ontario. But to say that I had a favorite place, I have favorite moments of every single place I play because I find that the crowd is so different. Sometimes like, I get such a reaction out of one song in one place that maybe I get a different reaction out of a different song in another place. So, but every time I look back on every single city I play, there is one thing that kind of has stood out, either the crowd's reaction. Um, I do a piano, just me and piano alone on the stage. And it was one woman in particular, and I believe it was in Hamilton. Um, she stood up. She stood up at the end and started clapping. And that started such an applause and everything. But that one woman just stood out in my mind that she enjoyed that she so much that she stood up and started clapping.
That's really cool. So it's like you get to like cross off a bunch of stuff on like the bucket list.
Yeah, yep.
My next question is, so I read your summary about Playing It Cool, and it mentions the beginning's catchy chorus is something you had like in mind long before the verses were written. I was just wondering, like, how did that happen?
So Playing It Cool, actually, the idea came to me from, everybody's got this one person somewhere in their life that had a huge ego. And he was like all breaking all the girls' hearts. And so when I started writing this, I thought, oh my gosh, does that ever remind me of this one person, like way back, maybe 20, 25 years ago, that I remember this guy. And that's where Playing It Cool kind of started from, and how he was breaking all these other girls' hearts, but I was playing it really cool, and it was frustrating for him. So it was like I just kind of grew from that story, and I thought, you know what? I bet everybody has a guy who was like that somewhere along the way, right?
Yeah, I that's one of my favorite songs personally. When I read the backstory, I was like, it's sassy and like it's like in your face, and I loved it.
It
This
was kind of like it's almost like playing with the serial heartbreaker,
yeah,
right? It's like a little, yeah, it's kind of like playing with his giving it a taste of his own medicine kind of thing.
I think we hear a lot of songs from like the opposite side where it's like a guy is like playing it cool and like he has like all these girls or like women chasing after them. So I was like, finally, like a song from like the woman's point of view and trying to like show him up.
Yeah, kind of like flipping the story, right?
Yeah. So your songs Saving Grace and My Heart Feels the Same Way Too are emotional and relatable songs. So how are you able to write songs that are both emotional and relatable to your audience?
Well, these songs that almost all the songs I write come from either an experience that I've gone through, something that I've heard somebody else go through, or a story that maybe I heard on TV, and it's usually something that's impacted me in some way. So when I do write, like Saving Grace was, it was like a kind of that lost first love that you never forget. And that memory of that person pops up through your life as you go along. Maybe not all the time, but they will pop up at some times. And the same with I Don't Care is that's probably one of the saddest songs I've written. And it is kind of reflective of the biggest heartbreak that I've had. But what a song I got out of it. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, I think most of the time, the best, strongest songs usually come from something that has really, really kind of emotionally affected you,
Hmm.
right? So when I write these songs, I do get a lot of people that kind of can say, because we've all gone through the same things at some point. So we're all human. So I think that when you hear those emotional songs, they're gonna maybe pull a little bit of a heartstring in a different way than maybe when I wrote it. But I think that people will kind of, you know, relate or feel it in their own way.
So back to when you said if like you hear an experience from somebody else, how are you able to kind of like, I guess, put yourself in that situation, to really give the personal effect and then convey that in songwriting?
I always write from the viewpoint of the person that's experiencing it. For some reason, I do, right? I always kind of put myself in the shoes of the person that is experiencing it. Um, so I find that that way I can visualize things and I can emotionalize things a little bit more than telling a story of something from the outside looking in.
Is that kind of like a mentality for you, or do you kind of ask like is it a conversation, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it just comes to me naturally. Um, it just helps me create a story a little bit easier. Um, there is one song on the album called His Perception, and that one is really interesting because it's talking about from a male's point of view on things.
Yes.
So once again, I kind of put myself in their shoes, but I told the story from like, this is his perception. But I had to kind of sit there and go, okay, how would he feel if this happened or this happened, right?
hmm
Yeah.
So what's your favorite song you've written and why?
Um,
I know it's probably hard to pick just one.
I think the one that I really felt the strongest about was I Don't Care, which was the saddest song I've written. But I think the most powerful one for me is Can't Stop Me Now, because that's the title track of the album, that's
Mhm.
the name of the tour. And it really is a reflection of where I am with my music, because there were many years where I put my music aside. And, I made some huge changes in order to fulfill this need for music in my life. I had been married for some time. I had a really, stressful job. I was in the financial field. It demanded a lot of my time. And unfortunately, my marriage ended. Um, and there came a point where I was like, why am I not doing my music now? What is stopping me from doing it? So, Priya, over a year ago, I left my job and I started to do this like 100%, gave all my time to it. And that's where Can't Stop Me Now came from, is that there is nothing that can stop me now from doing what I love except for me.
That's a really beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of artists talk about how you have to like consciously choose music, which I think is basically what you did. How did you like, I guess, plan this out for yourself, to kind of give yourself like the confidence that you needed to do this? Because obviously going from like financial kind of job and just everything else in your life to just a brand new industry is scary and like exciting. But how did you kind of ease the nerves and make sure you got where you needed to be?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I didn't make these changes lightly, right? They were very huge changes in my life. Um, the my job especially, um, I have a very strong business background because of all of the studying and education that I've done. Um, so it was very hard for me to make the decision to walk away from it. But I definitely find that my business background is making me make good decisions when it comes to the business side of the industry. Because all people really see is the shows and the music that comes out, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of business going on. So I think because I have that education, and I've worked hard for it, it's giving me a little bit of a benefit now in this industry, which you wouldn't think that it would be business related, but it really it's a 50-50. It's fun too, to do shows and everything, but there's a lot of contracting that goes on, right? And there's like money exchanged. And so I have the business sense to make good decisions.
Okay, so you're really involved in like the decisions you make surrounding your music in general, and then just like the back end as well, which is really cool. Um,
It's a lot of work. It's
I'm kind of
definitely a lot of work, but the way I look at it is if I get experience in each aspect of the music I'm doing, like from the back scene to the shows. We've created this tour around the album. If I do a little bit of everything, I won't be able to do everything myself forever, that's for sure, because I'm kind of running thin on my time now. So it's like I will pull in some help, of course. I have a publicist that kind of helps me with all my interviewing and that. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
so building off of that, what's your favorite way to like detox then, since you're so involved with like the business aspect and the music aspect as well?
Yeah, so writing is always my thing, right? I get a lot of joy out of that. Um, I love just going for walks. I listen to music on my walks. I have a little miniature Yorkie that I adore, and just kind of remembering, that life has to be like all all in. You can't focus all on one thing in your life because you will create burnout. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So I try to keep everything well-rounded, and I give myself the time to just take care of myself. And but yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I lost a lot of the stress when I finished working because it was a very high demand job. So taking that out of the picture was definitely something that I couldn't juggle both.
What advice would you have for upcoming artists to avoid burnout?
I think I would just not take everything to heart, right? This is a very tough business to be in. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. Um, I think I've kind of take everything with a grain of salt because, when you are trying to get a little bit further in this business, you will find that, you'll be on a high and then all of a sudden things go quiet and not everything's going to work out the way that you wanted to. But I have never stopped. It's almost like if one thing doesn't happen for me, I'm always like, okay, let's go on to the next thing, right? I don't kind of focus on any kind of negativity. Um, and I kind of drown out that if there's a lot of independent artists out there, and I say there's an audience for everybody. It's not, if you think that your music is not strong enough, or people aren't going to be receptive to it, you will be very surprised because there is always somebody who's going to like your music.
I think that's very true. I want to
Yeah.
ask you about a cliche, I guess, like I hear in the music industry, like speaking about lows, like when you have like haters, I guess, that means you made it. Is that true, or would you disagree with that?
There's always going to be somebody that just I'm not going to be their cup of tea, right? It's going to just happen that people are going to say, you know, maybe they can't relate to my voice, or my songs are, maybe a song is like too classic country for them. Some people think, oh, it's too rockish. It's like there's always going to be somebody that is going to, have a criticism. And really, hey, they listened, right? I had a listener. And if they have some sort of feedback, that means that it affected them in some way or another. So, like I said, I don't really take any kind of criticism or negativity that I hear to heart. And I think that is so important. And I don't know if it's because, I've had a career, I've had, I've gone through marriage and everything. So I'm kind of at a different end of this going into the music industry. But, I hate to see that younger people like in their early 20s who are trying to do this 25, 30, that they take that negativity to heart because it will kind of hold you back in your creativity.
I think it's really weird that people try to like box artists into like a certain like genre or like style or like brand because that's what makes the artist like unique. And if people did that to you, for instance, then you would only be playing one type of music or like not like you have a bit of rock in some of your country and like classic country. So I just think that's a really weird thing to do to somebody to want to crush their creativity.
I agree. I completely agree with you. That's a good way of kind of describing it because a lot of artists, sometimes they will kind of put themselves in that box because that's what they think is going to kind of put them a little bit further. But they kind of lose that special thing that actually made them have the creativity in the first
Hmm.
place. So that's why I think it's just so important to just remember, you know, what your style is. And they always say you kind of have to have your own brand. It makes you a little bit different than everybody else. And it's just staying true to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the first example that pops into my mind is like Post Malone. He used to like just do like a lot of rap. And now he's like going in the country genre. And like I don't follow like negativity like that, but I assume people like they were taken by a shock. Like that's something completely opposite to what he's done. But then there's a lot of people I know that really like that sound and like think he's doing a good job. So yeah, I just again I think it's weird people like they see you and they're like, this is what you can do. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I gotta say that Post Malone, what a brilliant move on his part to kind of expand and sing with like duet with the biggest names in country,
Yeah.
right? He's duetting with like the top people. And that is such a brilliant move on his part because if he just flipped over from his kind of genre and went, okay, I'm going to be country, like, would it have taken off? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that he's doing it with some really, really strong names in country music, it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
I
Yeah.
also think it goes to like kind of like respecting the genre, like who is there now or before you, and like appreciating that from like that standpoint, if that's something you want to do, making that switch.
That's great. That's a great way of looking at it too. Is that, you know what? He probably went out and said, you know what? If I'm going to do country, um,
You're gonna
I'm
do it
going
right.
I'm going to do it right and I'm going to learn from the best. So, and you got to admit, like the songs that he's doing duets with, they're great songs.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that country has to have a certain look anymore either, which I love because it used to be, oh, this is what you kind of look like when you're a country artist.
Mhm.
It's not like that anymore. Like
Yeah.
look at Jelly Roll. Like he's like anything goes. And so that's why it's like you don't have to be a certain look, you don't have to sound a certain way. It's like country music has kind of like got all different flavors in it now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you, like, what is next for you? What can we expect to see from you in the coming couple months or maybe next year?
So we have some more shows coming up for the Can't Stop Me Now tour. Like I said, we're going to be in Oshawa and Kingston, Windsor, Guelph. And then in 2025, I'm collaborating with other songwriters. So we will I have that Playin It Cool, which will be coming out on September 27th to radio. I'm excited about that. Um, I Don't Care is also going to be released. It is more on the adult contemporary side, so that's kind of something a little different. But going into 2025, the collaborations I'm doing, I'm really excited. These songs are kind of gonna expand my songwriting a little more because everything I wrote on the album, I wrote myself. So now it's getting other people's ideas. And I'm so excited about that because I just can't wait to see how our songs, turn out when you have different people's ideas and views.
Mhm. So my last question for you is, do you have a message for like fans or future listeners? Anything you want to just say?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're just getting started. And, being a newer artist and doing all these shows kind of as an introduction to who I am and my music. I appreciate everybody who comes out to my shows. I have a lot of people who just come out and they're like, we saw you advertised. We didn't know what your music was, but we thought we'd show up. And they end up buying merchandise and they stay after the show to meet me. And it's those people that take the chance on independent artists who are up and coming that may not have the huge following as these more well-known artists. It means so much to independent artists to have people come out and hear their shows. It really does mean a lot.
And I'm sure like those are the most loyal fans, right? They see you like from the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And they're gonna kind of see how my music is gonna evolve
Mhm.
because it's gonna change. Everybody's music changes as they go through the years when they collaborate and country music changes. So it's gonna be interesting to see 2025, the releases that we put out. They're gonna probably be a lot different than the ones that we put out this year.